Welcome to our channel. In today's video, we will be taking a look at a drama mystery about a man that finds out the truth about the dark side of the world of fortification through an underground sex club. Bill and Alice Harford are a wealthy couple from Manhattan who have been married for almost a decade and have a 7-year-old daughter named Helena. While Bill is a doctor, Alice used to run her own art gallery in the past and now focuses mainly on raising her daughter. Bill and Alice are invited to attorney Victor Ziegler's Christmas party one evening, which they accept graciously. They meet Victor and his wife Ilona at the party. Bill also happens to bump into Nick Nightingale, an old friend of his, who dropped out of medical school to pursue his dream of becoming a pianist. Bill is also invited by Nick to attend a gig that he had taking place in a few days. Alice, on the other hand, was being hit on by businessman Sandor Savost until she had to break it to him that she was married. Bill too was hitting on 2 models during this party, but Bill could not advance further on the models as he is suddenly caught by Ziegler's upstairs. There he finds an escort by the name of Mandy who had overdosed on cocaine and heroin. Bill managed to bring her back to a conscious state and even suggested she get some help for her addiction problem. Ziegler asked Bill to keep this incident a secret, to which he obliged. Alice and Bill indulge in an intense smoking sessions where both of them seem to be quite high. In this state, Alice talks about Bill hitting on the models during the party, to which Bill counters back with a question about the businessman who was hitting on her. Alice then reveals a very deep and dark secret about herself. She secretly was infatuated with a naval officer whom she saw in a resort in Cape Cod. Though she was a wife and a mother, she could not stop sexually thinking about him. She further added that she was glad that he had left early, as if he had stayed, she may have not been able to hold herself back from making her fantasies come true. Bill does not know how to react to this confession and is quite confused. He gets a call from a patient during these conversations and has to get up and leave. But even when he is on the way to see his patient, he is constantly thinking about his wife and her secret fantasy with a naval officer. Lou Nathanson, a patient of Bill's, had just passed away. His mother Marian was at their beautiful residence and Bill offered his condolences to her. Amidst all of this, Marian confessed her love for Bill and he just waved it off and told her that she was grieving and hence was saying such things. That's when Marian's fiancé Carl arrived and Bill escapes quickly. Bill is on his way back home when he sees a hooker, which again takes his thoughts back to his wife's confession. Being in this state of thought, he goes into a prostitute named Domino's apartment when she approached him on the street. Before things gets too intense between them, he pays her off and leaves the apartment. He starts walking until he reached Sonata Club where Nick was supposed to be playing. He decides to stop there for a while and talks to Nick. Nick tells Bill about a secret sex party that he would be playing for that night. He also gives Bill the password to the party, which he had just secured while having that conversation. Nick also mentions that the hosts of such parties blindfold him, so what happens at such parties is mostly quite a mystery to him. Bill decides to attend this party and goes to the Rainbow Fashion shop to secure himself a costume. There he finds Mr. Milich, who catches his daughter in a sexual encounter with 2 Japanese men. Bill gets his costume and leaves. Bill hires a taxi to take him to the location. On the way to the party, he is constantly thinking about his wife's fantasies. He manages to use the password and enter the party. Here, he can see quite a few individuals, all masked to keep their identities private. In the foyer area, he sees people in black robes who are masked. 13 masked women are placed at the center of the room in a circle, and in the center is a man in a red robe. A few rituals take place, following which the women drop their robes to expose them in their bikinis. The party commences and everyone indulges in different kinds of sexual acts. Bill is trying to figure out what is happening at this party when a masked woman approaches him and gives him a stern warning. She tells him that he does not belong there and that he would be in deep trouble if he were to be caught. This intrigues him to find the truth about the party even more. The masked woman finds him again and gives him another warning that someone has suspected him of being an outsider and that he must leave immediately. A masked porter interrupts these conversations and tells Bill that the taxi driver outside is waiting to speak to him. Bill believes him and follows the porter. The porter takes him to another bigger room instead of the taxi. Here the man in the red robe asks Bill to take off his mask and then his clothes. Before that, the masked woman insists that the fault was hers and not his, and she is taken out of the room to be dealt with. Bill is also warned not to tell anyone about what he had seen at that party. Bill comes back home and is very confused about all the events of the previous night. Bill decides to drop his costume off, but first decides to seek the answer to some questions he had about the previous night from Nick. But when he went to find Nick, it seemed that he had been checked out of the hotel by two men, and Nick left the hotel in a frightened and bruised state. He takes his costume to the shop to return it, only to find that the mask that came along with the costumes was not along with the rest of the attire. Bill has to pay an extra amount to compensate for not returning all the items that were rented. But before he left home to go to the shop, Alice talks to him about another sexual fantasy dream of hers where she and he roamed the street of a deserted city naked. She felt ashamed being naked in his presence, and as soon as he left to find clothes for them to wear, she felt much better. That's when the naval officer was back in the scene, and she even saw a scene where Bill watched her have intercourse with multiple men. Bill continues to think about the events of that night and decides to do some more exploring. He takes the day off, pulls off his Range Rover, and heads to the party's location. The gate was locked and Bill was not allowed in. However, a man in a suit came up to Bill and handed him an envelope. In the envelope, he saw his name written as well as a threat stating that this was the second warning that he was getting to stay away from these parties. Bill has a rough day and heads back home to find his wife tutoring his daughter in math. Bill decides to clear his head and lies on his wife about having some extra patience at night, due to which he will be home late. He heads to his office and in all this confusion calls Marion, but her fiance picks up the call. So he decides to head to Domino's residence with some pastries, and there he finds her roommate Sally instead of her. Bill tries to seduce Sally, but that does not go well as she tells him how she had just broken up with her boyfriend as she was found to be HIV positive. Bill heads back home and reads a newspaper along the way. That's when he catches a shocking news article about the death of Amanda Curran due to a drug overdose. Amanda was the same Mandy who he had brought to a conscious state at Ziegler's party, and he starts wondering if he was the masked woman who put her life before his to save him at the party. Ziegler wants to meet Bill and calls for a meeting. Bill agrees and Ziegler states that he knows all about Bill's recent endeavors and asks him to stop looking into this matter. He even convinced Bill that it was just voyeurism and sex and that nothing went beyond that. Bill was confused for a while but decided to stay out of it and drop that matter. Bill goes back home and finds the mask that he used at the orgy lying on his pillow. He gets all emotional and breaks down. The next day, Alice and Bill have an honest talk about how they can work on curbing their desires. Both of them take their daughter Christmas shopping at FAO Swatch to reconcile the traumas that their personal desires had caused them.